Hello, 2 Minute Spicy Fest fans. I hope your day is going well, um, but I may be about to make it a little bit worse. This podcast is not going to be the same as the usual, mainly because I am the only one in the recording studio. Gayvian is not present for this recording, and I believe it is safe to say that he has set foot in the studio for the last time. It's not that he's physically unwell, it's more that I do not feel that it's appropriate to host him on this podcast, or indeed on my channel any longer. The next episode of this podcast is going to be mostly a return to form, but I thought it was my duty to dedicate this episode to exposing Gavian's actions, his lies. This is a pretty heavy podcast, so if you are faint of heart or easily made sad, I recommend maybe skipping this one and just listening to this week's Joe Rogan Experience. If you think you can handle things like that, then I implore you to stick with me and let me give you the truth behind Gavian, that he has worked so hard these past years to keep under wraps. Yeah, so this is the Gavian report. I first met Gavian on Armistice Day 2008 on the Zuzu Pets forum. And he was talking in the technical difficulties subpage, talking about how his Zuzu Pet was bleeding sort of a yellow-orange goo substance. And I said, you maybe need to give it some dairy and maybe a little bit of carbohydrates. It's something that you don't usually feed your Zuzu Pet, but if it's doing that, it probably has some sort of deficiency. And they said, okay. So it fixed that problem. But Gavian instant messages me on the Zuzu Pets instant message, the instant message system, and he said, "Well, Luna, you look like a pretty smart Zuzu Pet expert." And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty smart when it comes to Zuzu Pets." And he said, "Okay, so my Zuzu Pet is sort of he's kind of spinning in a circle, going in a circle on the floor, and he's visibly angry. He's got angry eyebrows." And I said, "Okay, what we do usually is if the Zuzu Pet's doing that, we usually what we want to do is call the police, and they will come and they will handcuff the guinea pig Zuzu Pet." Which is what all Zuzu Pets are. They will handcuff the guinea pig Zuzu Pet, and they will say, "If you don't stop spinning right now, we are going to take you to jail, and you will get the death penalty." And then it gets scared, so it stops. And Kevin was like, "Okay, I'll do that." And he did it, and it was fine. Um, After that, he did still keep in touch with me. He moved on to other topics like, what's your favorite Zuzu pet? What's the awesomest Zuzu pet? What's the best Zuzu pet? Like, what Zuzu pet do you usually choose? What Zuzu pet do you recommend the most? What's the coolest Zuzu pet? What's the coolest looking Zuzu pet? What Zuzu pet has the most powers? What's the number one Zuzu pet of all time? What's the hip Zuzu pet right now? What Zuzu pet is popular among the kids of today? What Zuzu pet do you value above all other Zuzu pets? What's your favorite Zuzu pet? What Zuzu pet do you think is better than other Zuzu pets? What Zuzu pet do you think has superior quality to most other Zuzu pets? What's the Zuzu pet that you say that other people should get? What's the Zuzu pet that you go to whenever you need like a new Zuzu pet? What Zuzu pet would you pay any money for? What's the coolest looking Zuzu Pet accessory? How many Zuzu Pet tricks did you teach your Zuzu Pet? What's the best Zuzu Pet trick to teach my Zuzu Pet once he's level 2? What should I spend my Zuzupet XP points on? Um, what kind of Zuzupet clothes do you recommend for my Zuzupet? What kind of Zuzupet breeds do you think are the best? What's the best type of Zuzupet? Um, when you think Zuzupet, what comes to your mind? What type of Zuzupet comes to your mind? Um, what what's the what Zuzupet do you think is king of the Zuzupets in terms of quality? What do you think? What Zuzupet do you think that they really did a good job of designing? What kind of Zuzupet makes the best sounds? What Zuzupet is the heaviest? What Zuzupet is made out of the most durable materials? What's the loudest Zuzupet? What Zuzupet is the most expensive to produce? Um, and they started becoming more personal questions like, what's your address? What does your teeth look like? What do your dental records look like? What does your credit card look like? What does your birth certificate look like? What words are in it? And that was at that point that I was like, okay, Gabe, okay, can we change the subject a little bit? Because I'm not comfortable about talking about this with a stranger in DMs. And he said, I know, I just had a great idea. What if we do a podcast called 2 Minute Spicy Puffs? And I said, that's a really good idea. There were a lot of instances where I think Gavian was trying to trick me into giving him more money. So, like, at some point he said, hey, Luna, wouldn't it be funny if in the next episode of the podcast you said your social security number like 5 times just as like a random joke? And I said, I don't. Yeah, that would be maybe funny, but I wouldn't do it because that would be dangerous. And he said, well, I don't really see why you're so upset. All I did was tell you a funny joke, and now you are looking at me like I just had sex with you. And I said, well, I'm sorry. And I didn't realize that was bad, that hurt your feelings. And he said, well, it's okay because you have sex with all kinds of men. And I said, that's not true. And he said, it's not that it's true. That's what he said. He messaged me, it's not that it's true. And then he said something else, but he deleted it. So I don't know what else he said. And there was a couple times where he would like send me a message that was like, this is Pope Francis. We have the biggest gummy bear ever, and we're shipping it to you, but you have to you have to pay for shipping. And it's like $100 or $1 billion. And I would be like, Gavian, did you mean to send that to under a different like username? And he said, it's a joke. You're taking it way too seriously. And I think what you have too much sex, and it's in your brain, and you think everything's sex now. And I said, I'm sorry. You know what? That was an overreaction. And then he would send the same thing 3 times with like slightly different wording. I was friends online on Twitter with a guy on Twitter named Monkey Butts, and he was 51 years old. And he had the coolest Japanese hairdo. I guess it's called a mohawk. He had the coolest Japanese hairdo I've ever. And he would take pictures of it and like from different profiles. And when it on bird's eye view, it would always like spell out something. And that was mainly why I was friends with him, was to just like keep in touch with like all the different hairstyles that he came up with. um, and Gavian was like, "Well, I'm interested in this person. Maybe we should do a podcast about him and maybe learn about some of his personal information." And I said, "Well, that doesn't seem appropriate." And I think Gavian at this point he would contact Monkey Butts a lot and be like, "Hey, do you want to come on our podcast?" And he would always say like, "No, that doesn't sound like something I would want to do." And eventually, um, he just started ghosting Gavian, which I don't blame him for. But he sent me his like the DM log, and there are just thousands of messages of Gavian just being like, "Hey, do you want to say something racist to me? Um, I won't tell anybody, and I'll just tell you whether or not it's racist in my opinion." He just said that a lot. He was like, "Come on, it would be fun to say something racist." And it would just be like one message after another, like 5 minutes in between each one. Like, are you cool? Do you do you feel cool? Do you feel like a cool punk? Um, Stuff like that. Do you want to be racist? Monkey Butts messaged me. We haven't talked for several years, but he talked to me about a month ago, and he was like, "Can you control your horny pipsqueak?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, this Gavian character is giving me a run for my money." And I was like, "Oh, here we go." And he said, "Well, basically, 5 months ago, he show up at my he show up at my house. He show up at my house, and he he make he made he tore my hair off." And I was like, what? Like, that was the most evil thing I've ever heard. Gavian tore this man's head off about 6 months ago in summer. I didn't even know that they lived in the same place. I thought maybe he lived like I thought he lived like next door to me. And he said that he had to put bandages on his head because it was so it had so much pain. and and I talked to Gavian about this, and he was proud. Like, he was like, "You well, I mean, he took a picture of himself, and I could see that he had Monkey Butts' hairdo on his hair." And I was like, "What? Like, what is this? Some kind of like?" And Gavian said, "Well, I want to be just like him when I grow up, and now I'm an adult." And it was true. So you talked to me recently. I'm doing a thing for about Gavian, and I just want so you were talking to me about how he tore off your hair.
That is pretty much how it went down. Yes, well, basically, when he came to my house, he just tore off my hair, and he screamed, and then he left. And I remember my wife being very scared because she got a message in the mail saying, "I am Davian, and you are my slave."
Gavian has been working on what I can only refer to as like an animal cruelty contraption, where he puts in it's made out of animals, and when you put in an animal, it comes out as a different it's magic. So it select it turns it's hard to describe. It turns animals into other animals, but it has to be an animal it's always an ugly animal. It turns the animal into an ugly animal. Okay, so you're a Chihuahua, right? And you got turned into
A praying mantis.
yeah. So how is that? What's that been like?
As far as praying mantises go, I'm like the ugliest one ever. So, yeah, like, it's, it's bad. It's the worst ever. I would not recommend it to anybody. I would not. It's the worst thing ever. I. It's the worst. It's the worst thing ever. I can't eat doggy kibble. I have to eat bugs and worms and stuff. And I have to camouflage into other plants to stay alive in the forest. And friends all hate me because I'm ugly and I don't have anything in common with them anymore because I'm a bug and dogs hate bugs. So it's the worst. It sucks.
Hardcore fans of the podcast might remember the Gayvian show, which was a program that Gayvian and I and a bunch of other people worked on, and you might also notice that it's not on the channel anymore. Everyone who worked on that show, besides me and Gayvian, were just so adamant about getting it off the air and just not having it on television or anywhere on the internet, just because of like how traumatizing it was for them and how deeply ashamed they were of putting it together. And I think that's mainly because of just the nacho stuff that Gavian would do. Every time he got like even slightly excited, he would say, "Did somebody say nachos?" And then it didn't make any sense. Like 1 second, everything was completely spotless, and then everything was just coated in nacho cheese, and I think it was stale. It was like mixed in with like dish soap. It wasn't edible nacho cheese. It was some kind of contaminated product that Gavian just had access to at all times. And every time it happened, the loudest music you've ever heard would play out of like his speakers. That's like shoved in his pocket, and he would just run around. And usually during this, like equipment would get damaged irreparably. People would get seriously injured. People would get like poisoned by whatever. Like if their mouth was open, like they would get something. It would get in them. If they had like a wound on their body, it would get in the wound, and it would like get infected. And like a lot of like infant children were like injured or killed because of like the nacho sprees that he would, and that's what he called them, nacho sprees. So you're the ghost of a baby that died on set on the Gavian show during one of Gavian's nacho sprees, right? We will be back with more Gavian Report after these messages.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm Flub. Say, do you like Glub? Well, you should watch the Glubcast. It's really good.
Are you tired of hearing podcasts about Glub?
Don't you want to hear a podcast about Frub?
Well, come on down and check out the Frubcast. We talk about Frub all day, and sometimes we even make a couple jokes.
Dracula is so sexy, his penis is big. Ah.
The Frubcast. Uploads every single day.
In a world filled with Frub and Glub, why would you not want to listen to a podcast about Slub?
Listen to my father while listening to the Slubcast. You will feel so good after it is over.
This is going to come as a surprise to a lot of people. So the first officially released 2 Minute Spicy Puffs video podcast episode was released in 2021. We had been trying to record podcasts for 2 Minute Spicy Puffs since I think 2013, and a lot of them, the content was just unsalvageable. So we would just start over, and I didn't use any of the audio because I was just like, this is worthless to me. I think a lot of it was just because we had a third regular co-host of the podcast. Her name was Meredith Eclair Edith. Meredith Eclair Edith. She was an eclair cook in Saskatchewan, and Gayvian would just verbally abuse her every chance he got. He was so mean. He was like, I didn't know her. Like, he was the one who knew her, so I just figured that this was like a language that they had together where they would just like, verbally abuse each other. But it was pretty much just one-sided, and every time that Meredith declared like said something bad about Gavin, he would be like, he would like stare at her really intensely until they broke eye contact, and it was super scary. And I was just like, Gavin, I don't think Meredith declared has a good fit for our podcast. So the last episode we recorded with Meredith Declarative was like in 2021. I think the last one, the straw that broke the camel's back, was this monologue that Gavian did, and I still have it I still have the transcript on my hard drive because I thought maybe we would use this, and it just like dissipated. It was like briefly on YouTube for a second, but it was just like, Meredith declared that you stink, you stink, you stink, you stink. I have it up here. You stink so bad that a mule looks at you and they say, I don't know if I'm allowed to read this. So what is your relationship like with Gavian like now?
Actually, in his stomach, I'm being dissolved.
Are you serious?
I'm being dissolved by his stomach acid. It's quite painful.
The fuck?
But it's quite normal. So you notice.
I legitimately did not. I did not know that.
Well, yes. Because you remember that because Gavin would always say that I am so scrumptious looking and he wants to put me on a hot dog.
So I think a lot of people remember that we did a Pizza Toots episode, and I want to come clear about that. That was against my will. He basically said, if we don't do a podcast about Pizza Toots, I'm gonna rampage across Tokyo City. And he showed pictures of his giant big feet in Tokyo City, like threatening to stomp on a bunch of people, and it looked really realistic in 3D, and it was really cool. It's just like a really cool image, and I was like, hey, can you send me more of like images like that? And he said sure, and a couple more of just his bare feet, large in Tokyo City. And I didn't realize that was like all like fake, and that he just like made those. So I was under the impression that like he was like at a giant large size and like threatening to kill a lot of people in Japan. But it turned out that he just told me that to like coerce me into doing a Pizza Toots podcast with him. I think the reason that he wanted to talk about Pizza Toots was mainly just because he's the creator of that. He's the creator of the music. He wrote the song. He wrote the parody, and it was so. That was just such a pivotal point in his career as a singer songwriter, that he just. That's all he makes now, is just Pizza Toots songs, parodying different things, and it's actually like really good. But it's also hidden, and you can't get it anywhere. You can't find it, and if you look for it, you can't find it, and you can't see it. It's hidden, and they took it off the internet, and you can't find it anywhere. And if you try to use it in the Wayback, you can't. There won't be anything, and you can't find it anymore. But it's real. But if you can't see it, you can't find it. There's no evidence. You can't find any evidence of it anymore because they all got taken off. So, hi, so you're,
I'm Katy Perry.
Of course, I need some introduction, and you were a vocalist in the Pizza Toots music video.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
So, was the recording of the Pizza Toots music video difficult?
No.
The Angry Podcast Nerd and Cornelius Hamster Dance were created in a lab by Gayvian. He created a ritual where he converted our podcast essence into spirit shells, and he filled them full of a goo substance that was constituted from his evil, malicious intent, and they were created as vessels to wreak havoc and chaos upon the world, and they are some of the craziest villains that have ever roamed the land, and we don't know what to even do, because Batman's not real, and Superman's not real, and Green Lantern's not real, and Spider-Man's not real, and Sandman's not real, and Joker's not real, and the Penguin's not real, and the Ant-Man's not real, and the Hulk's not real, and Green Arrow's not real, and Black Widow's not real, and Nick Fury's not real, and Wolverine's not real, and Quicksilver's not real, and Squirrel Girl's not real, and the Flash is not real, and the Gregorian chant choir's not real. So Gavian, I think, recently talked about being trapped inside a crystal. That was all. Well, it's half true. I suffered a lot of damage on my fingers from putting him inside the crystal, but I was aware that if Gavian was outside of the crystal for the airplane flight, he was liable to use a device to interfere with the plane's frequencies and have it go backwards back to our house so he could play trampoline jump again. I'm also not the inventor of that crystal. I would never take credit for such amazing craftsmanship. That was actually created by a group of warrior elves who wished to seal Gavian's evil spirit within the earth. And that was it was a good plan, but Gavian was he was still in his larval stage at that point. So it was only they didn't figure out any way how to like shrink him down to fit him inside the crystal. They just figured that he would always be in, because this was 2,000 years ago, so they didn't know how much large Gavian would become. And right now Gavian is like he's like adult size. So you were present 2,000 years ago for the sealing of Gavian within the crystal. So what prompted that decision?
Gayvian was an evil man. He'd always tried to kill the boys and use them as the paste that filled his teeth with lovely gold. It wasn't real gold, it was sort of more of a bone marrow substance that shone in the light. He was an alchemist, he turned elves into gold. He was so cool. I had his number and I said, Gayvian, stop it. And he would say, no, 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 no. I tried to kill him with my brain, but nothing came of my brain scheme. In the night, we created a crystal bright.
Stop trying to wake up the infant children in the other room. The thing that made me want to create this video and you know, kick Gavian out of the studio and out of my life forever, this was October. Me and him were at a ratatouille restaurant, it was delightful. I had a minestrone soup, and he had a warm garbanzo hot chocolate sandwich. And I was saying what a lovely restaurant this is, what lovely meals we're having, and what a lovely atmosphere is in this establishment. And Gavian, in response to this, I don't know if I guess I'm technically allowed to say the words that make up this sentence, but I feel just like saying them in this order is like breaking a law that has been set in place by God. For archival's sake, I will say it. So Gavian, in response to this, he did a big big goofy face at me, and he said, "Your mama." Um, so I said, I basically said, ogre powers activate, and I got my ogre mech suit on, and I punched him about 40 times in the stomach. So he was now down on the ground, incapacitated. I looked down on him and I said, "Gayvian, I'm friend divorcing you, and I'm also gonna restaurant divorcing you." And I threw him out of the restaurant through a window. And the Ratatouille restaurant was on a hill, so it kind of rolled down into a pond. And I didn't get in trouble for that either because everyone knew what he said. So no one was mad at me. It was more so that they were happy and clapping and laughing. Gavian, I want to say, has killed 1 billion people. Like 1% of the people who have died in history are his fault. And I mean, that's pretty impressive. That was mostly why I was his friend, because it was just having such a powerful ally. But the thing is, he's unpredictable, and you never know when he will try to scam you out of $100. What else is there to say about Gavian? He has a big heart, and he always wants to do what's right. That was the Gavian theme song. I guess most people haven't heard that because it was on the Gavian show, and that obviously has been discontinued, and no one can watch it anymore because of all the infant deaths that were tied to it, because of the nacho sprees. It's really sad. There was like a lot of funerals, just like in the on set. Because there's just like scheduling issues, so they had to have the funerals while we were filming. We will be back with more Gayvian Report after these messages. The Cold Tunnel is a new serial fictional murder mystery podcast by Google Babies Limited. One day a boy goes missing in a cold tunnel and they found his corpse dead in the tunnel, dead, and no one knows how they did it. And it's all tied to a circle of clowns that were circled around the boy's corpse when he died. And it turns out that they find out later that the clowns were immortal circus clowns from the 1800 circus that never died and were harvesting the boy's blood for to never age, but they still don't know how the boy died. And they found out later that the clowns were also guarding a golden amulet that holds secret powers yet unknown to the characters of the story, and the powers have recently have made it so that some of the characters are invisible, but they don't know why. And there's a restaurant that they go to sometimes, but they find out that the restaurant is food poisoning all the customers, and the owner of the restaurant is one of the clowns, but not wearing makeup. And it's all a mystery about a restaurant owned by a clown who is part of a cult of clowns that holds a golden amulet and harvests children blood. And all in the middle, it's all about a boy who is lost in the cold tunnel and dies, and they don't know how he died, and they couldn't find any any wounds on his body or signs of struggle, so they don't know how he died, and they can't figure it out. And it updates every 5 Fridays on GoogleBabiesPlus.com. Hello, bro. Are you a straight white woman? If you answered no,
Get out of my world! Get out! Get out of here! Get away!
if you answered yes, you should check out our Awesome Lady podcast. Awesome Lady Podcast is an awesome lady podcast where 2 straight white women talk about awesome lady stuff. And this is what my audio sounds like for every single episode. The Awesome Lady Podcast updates every Sunday. Check it out on the Apple Podcast Store.
If you're white!
Somewhere in the dark confines of Texas lies a little evil pervert man named Gayvian, and I have spent 5 years of my life documenting his actions and trying to figure out what is wrong with his brain. Totally false lies presents the Gayvian Report every single Monday on YouTube. Gayvian found out pretty quickly by word of mouth that I was interviewing people and compiling this document, and he got pretty angry, and and I had blocked him on everything because I had friend voiced him. I ended up having to move to a different house because I woke up one day and my front yard was just covered in Gordito taco nacho sauce and clones of Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7. So thankfully he hasn't gotten a hold of my home address. Uh, but he does still have my old phone number, and I mean I haven't been checking it just out of mental health, but I feel like it would be good to compile all of his voicemails. So here are all of the voicemails I've got in chronological order.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
Alright, today I'm recording Gumbo Test the fourth. Um, this is kind of like, um, when there's a penis in me.
So I'm not sure what that one meant. A lot of these I can infer what it means just based on like he'll use the code that we used to have with each other as friends. This one I think it's just that he had a kind of a health scare during a radio theater performance, and he was calling me because it was just the first thing that came to his mind. I don't think there was any evil intent to this one.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
Blood farts. Do blood farts. Evil spirits.
This one, you might have heard this one before because it's a famous one because it's at the end of every podcast. Yeah, so this is an incantation that he sometimes does, and I think he called me just to warn me that he was calling evil spirits onto my home. Uh, and I mean, I have to respect, I have to appreciate that he gave me a heads up and called me instead of just doing it. I think that was out of love, out of the remaining love in his heart for my big bodacious booty.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
Big slops, big slops. Oh, I'm gonna come get you. Holy fucking shit.
So there's not a lot to explain here. He is very clearly threatening me in this, saying, that he's gonna come get me. Again, I appreciate the heads up. As for the big slops thing, I don't know. I think he was probably reminiscing over memories of his mother's death, and that just bled through in his voicemail.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
Big slops flopping around. Well, that's it. That's it. Bye-bye. That's it. Bye-bye. That's it. Bye-bye. Audio test. Bye-bye. Ah!
Again, I don't think this one was evil. I think he was just lonely, and still reminiscing over his mother. It makes sense in at a time like this, and it's a hard time for him. I could tell he was in an airplane. I don't know where he would have been going. But this was around the time that the Queen of England died. So read into that what you will.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
Gum test 3. If there's a fan in here, I'm gonna fucking kill.
So this one was directly after, like 5 minutes after the last one. So clearly he was still on the airplane. I don't know how he was able to use his phone on the airplane, but I think the thing about the fan, I believe that was him, threatening homicide against members of the 2 Minute Spicy Puss fandom, after he got kicked out, and that was him lashing. I really hope that there was no 2 Minute Spicy Puss fans on that plane for their sake, and indeed for the sake of every other passenger on that plane, because the plane would have gone down with him, and Gayvian would have survived because he's because he can turn into ice cubes.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
Thousands of glumps flying about. Avoid them if you can. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off.
That was another warning, that he was commanding an army of his evil minions against me. And you can tell that he's almost like incomprehensibly angry. He's just filled with rage at this point because I haven't returned any of his calls. I haven't interacted with him whatsoever, and he has no evidence of my death. So at this point, he doesn't know what to do.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
You know you can poop here if you want to. It's possible. Do it right now. Do it right now. Go.
The first time I heard this voicemail message, I did cry a single big, fat, gooey, slimy tear out of my big eye. Because, I knew it was he was saying, please come over and visit me at my house, and pet my Shih Tzu pug mix. And, as much as I am in danger of him, I still have to be like, oh man, I wish I could pet his Shih Tzu pug mix.
Hey, it's me, Luna. Check it out. I'm your voicemail. Check it out. Leave a message at the beep.
Can you hear the sound of
Kind of an audio rebus that he did. It was basically, can you hear the sound of the screams of all the people that I've killed? And I can. They're actually like pretty much right outside my house. Pretty big coincidence that he lives like right next to me, and he doesn't even know like what my address is. It's pretty just shows you how much we're just glued to our phones. I got our nose in our phones. And when we sneeze, that's a like. So that was the last voicemail that got sent to me from Gayvian thus far as of now. And I'm assuming that's going to be the last one for a little while since he, once this podcast comes out. But if you want to help in my cause to stop Gayvian's evil tricks, don't bring any attention to yourself, maybe just make a little thing on Twitter saying, Gayvian, he says homophobia instead of homophobia, and that's bad because homophobia has homo in it, and homo's a cuss, which is not allowed. And get him in trouble a little bit, get him grounded by his mama dada. And if you see Gayvian on the street, if you maybe have a teleport power, or if you have a get as big as Godzilla potion, or if you can do some cocaine, maybe you should do that. Maybe put a costume on that is like Gayvian, that makes you look like him, so he thinks that you're him. So you don't get mad. There's some options. If you can't get big Godzilla or teleport or do cocaine, there are some options for you. And if you have been pranked by Gayvian, there's a support group for you, just for you. It's called, just go on to help. I got pranked by Gayvian and now everything is bad and I am melting and I have a big thing on my head. What is that thing on my head? What is it? It's like a bump, but it's moving. It's a moving bump. Help me, it's the moving bump. Oh, it's the moving bump. I cannot believe that the bump is moving. It's a moving freaking effing bump.com/gov. The Gayvian Report was brought to you by Luna. Voiceover was done by Luna. Everything was by Luna. Interviews by Luna. Copyright Luna. Everything is Luna. I am Luna. Check me out. I am Luna.